Well, it has always been my intention sort of combine both, because I think that one helps the other. If an opera singer sings mostly dramatic things in his life, it's very good for him to sing lyrically. And on the other hand, if a concert singer devotes himself also to opera singing, then his interpretation will become a bit more dramatic. And so this way help also the concert singer to get a little more variety in his singing.
Yes. Well, this shows in the Schubert songs, which go to so many extremes, really, don't they, in expression?
Yes, they do. In fact, I always consider Schubert being a very dramatic composer, and I think it's a great shame that he has never found the libretto for writing an opera, because I think he definitely would have been a composer for operas also, as he is in his dramatic songs. You can find this when you listen to the songs out of the Greek history. They are extremely dramatic.
Yes.
Prometheus and Grenzen der Menschheit and Gropius zum Tartarus would be a good example for that.
Yes. What an opera that would have been.
Well, certainly a dramatic one.
Yes.
And well, I have no idea, because Schubert obviously was always trying to find somebody for a libretto, but he didn't succeed.
When did you sing your first Wagnerian role?
I was only 22 years of age when I had been a member of an opera company in Czechoslovakia, in Troppau. This was a German-speaking opera group, and that was the part of Wotan in Siegfried, which was for a young boy, almost you can say, with 22, quite an experience.
Yes.
But this was, as we can rightly say, this was really the first attempt to do something in that line, and well, then the other parts came along later on.
As it happened, of course, you developed into one of the greatest Wotans of your generation. I think that's how you've been described very often.
Yes, of course, such a label may be a handicap at times, and you feel responsible for always being something special, and it's hard to live up to a reputation once you are, as the Americans say, rubber stamped for something.
Yes, just going back to the thought of Wagnerian roles and the great effort they require from the voice, from the singer in every possible way. It's possible by technique to cover all these requirements, I would think, isn't it, without impairing the voice?
Yes, that is definitely true. First of all, we have to consider the fact that Wagner himself wanted all these trying operas only be performed in Bayreuth. And as all Bayreuth visitors know, this is one of the most, of the best acoustics you can find in a hall, in an opera house in the world. And therefore, and there's another thing, as one knows, in Bayreuth, the orchestra is covered and is therefore not heard so much as in a normal opera house. That means the singer doesn't have to use as much voice as he probably has to use in a ordinary opera house.
Yes.
And therefore, the strain for the voice isn't as much as one thinks. And on the other hand, it's just a habit that most singers think Wagner means singing loud. In dynamics, there's an enormous variety of piano singing in Wagnerian parts, and you can sing a Wagnerian part in an Italian style as well as coming from any country. There is not a specific school for singing typically for any country or any language. Yeah. It's more or less this style of singing should apply to any language.
Yes. With the orchestra covered as it is in Bayreuth, is this at all disconcerting, the fact that you're out of touch with them?
No, it is. At first, it is disturbing. And it's always nice to watch young singers when they come first times, or say singers who sing first time, that they do not hear the orchestra very well. But as the audience is filled, then you hear it. But you hear it better than the audience does because of this coverage. They hear more the voices. So that the orchestra is really not covering the voices. So the voice is the dominating feature. After all, the word should be understood. And I know from Wagner's books and scripts that he was very keen on this fact that the voice should never be covered by too loud an orchestra.
Yes, you say the words should be understood. This would apply equally and probably even more importantly to the whole repertoire of Lieder.
I should say the main difference between Lieder singing and opera singing is that the word plays a more important part in Lieder singing, as we have poetry which is more, or say, is improved by good music, and the words get a better meaning as they would have by itself. Well, this has, of course, always been open to discussion for all sorts of opinions, as one thinks perhaps the words may be distorted. As we all know, for instance, Goethe himself, he wasn't very keen on his poem to be used as, well, as an helping thing for music. And in fact, it's known that he had received Schubert's compositions. Schubert, he was, by the way, a great admirer of Goethe's. But the songs have been sent back without comment. So, then we have other composers like Hugo Wolf, for instance, who was very much interested in the words, mainly, should say, rather interested in words than in his own music. He wanted to help the words come out by his music, while other composers, say, for instance, Schubert, he wanted his melodies to be used or in connection with words. So the melody in Schubert songs plays a more important part than perhaps with other composers.
Yes. I think it's clear that when you sing the various songs by the different composers that they are distinctly different songs. Do you consciously feel that way about them? You know, you sing a bracket of Schubert songs, then Schumann, then Wolf, say.
Yes, there's a great difference, especially in the way of the composition is done differently. Schubert's, or let's put it that way, Wolf's compositions are more fit in rhythm to the diction of the words. You could almost recite the poetry in the rhythm as Hugo Wolf has composed them. But you cannot with Schubert. And but that doesn't mean that the words with Schubert aren't as important as they were. After all, this was a different period. Wolf lived at a time when the dramatic approach to the music was quite different from what it used to be the romantic period of Schubert's, where, as I said, the melody is the commanding and dominating part. But singing the melodies of Schubert and at the same time to be aware of the words, of their meaning and importance, this is the thing one has to reach for as a goal in Lieder singing.
After I'd heard you sing the 3 Schumann songs in Sydney a few nights ago, I think I remarked at the time that they were beautiful, sad songs, which they really are, aren't they? And this is in comparison with Schubert, who also wrote quite sad songs.
One says Schubert wrote mostly sad things, but I think this is, one cannot really say that Schubert wrote sad things. I think that's something to do with the Slavic origin of the Schubert family. They come from a Slavic family, and the Slavs have always this slight, as the Russians have, this slight depressed approach, soulfulness, but it's very attractive, and it doesn't mean that one is always sad. It's their character, and this definitely is also in Schubert music. So the sadness in Schumann's music is, I think, a little different. There's an intimacy of beauty, which is, you cannot compare the two altogether. I mean, great geniuses, there are so much, each of them is on his own, that you cannot compare. You shouldn't, I think, compare great geniuses in music. But the sadness in these songs, poems by Kerner, are especially attractive in their intimacy, their subtleness, perhaps.
Later on this week in Adelaide, you'll be talking to some of our younger people in music about these very same things, I suppose, in the masterclass, wouldn't
Yes, we will certainly touch the subject, and it will all depend on which way they will perform, because a masterclass like this is always something to be improvised. You never know what's coming, and that makes perhaps the whole thing the more attractive, that you are on the spur of the moment to decide what you say and what your reaction is to what the students. And it doesn't really matter whether, I don't think even they should be as perfect as they perhaps want to be, which is right. But it is not meant to be that they offer a perfect performance to the audience. They should, as they do in a lesson, or they work for themselves, and to learn, to bring out what they have in mind, what it should sound. And this is, I think, the main interest in this, that a young artist should have something in mind. He should have enough imagination to know what you would like it to sound, and then, of course, to bring it on a level. Practically, this is something that takes a lifetime.
Yes. I think you give a good example of how to get on and off a stage and how to stand on a stage in presenting these songs. This usually is one of the most difficult things for the young singer to learn, to be aware of, isn't it?
It's been neglected very often, and I think, looking back at the own time of the beginning of my career, I wasn't aware of how important it would be. One, as a young person, one thinks that's very superficial to talk about these things, and it's the art which counts and not these things. But as I have learned, it is very important that the approach to the audience comes in a pleasant way. The way you look at people, the way you try to gain their interest. After all, one should never forget that a part of the audience hears a certain piece of music, as well known as it may be, for the first time.